It's the big D. That is fabulous. I hope we're recording. We are.
We are recording. I'm having that. That's fantastic.
That is awesome. That is so good.
Oh, he's gone. He's gone. Come back.
No, I imagine. Hello, Big D. Cool. You all right?
Yeah, you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thank you.
Excellent.
Well, I didn't get the T-shirt memo. I needed a grey T-shirt, shouldn't I? Or something in the middle, something different.
And grey shows up your man boob sweat most prolifically. I can tell you.
So just everything to hide everything. Dark colours, no stripes.
Exactly. Let's get this pantomime podcast underway for a special edition of the six-legged pantomime horse with this week with the one, the only, we know him affectionately as the Big D, Donald Allison, the man behind all of it. And he is responsible. I mean, look at him, he's cheery chappy, isn't he?
They don't call me grumpy for nothing.
Well, let me tell everybody let me tell our audience, I say everybody, our audience, a little story, a little bit of background. Back in June 2022, was it 2022? Crikey, it must have been. You said, fancy a drink, and I was like, okay, I haven't seen Donald for donkeys. Let's go and have a chat. And you basically said, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. Everything ICT is running along nicely. I think I'm going to retire. And you said, don't do that. I've just invented this thing with AI, and it's brilliant. I think it's got legs. And I was like, well, funnily enough, Kieron and I are off to Vegas for a little jolly in August, and we're going to check out this whole AI thing. And we went off to Vegas and got hideously sunburned, managed to avoid any of the gaming tables because we saw loads of people throwing loads of money away. We avoided a minor incident in the Bellagio bar, which will definitely remain just between Kieron and I. And and we came back and went, maybe Donald's got it, and maybe we should go and have a chat with Donald and let's see what we come up with. And then not even a month later, Leading AI was conceived and set up as a business. And here we are, almost 3 years later, on what has been a roller coaster of a journey, hasn't it? I mean, it even though it's 3 years, it feels like 3 minutes, doesn't it? Because when you first came to me and said, I've done this thing and it's like a private ChatGPT, we didn't know it was called RAG at the time, did we? It didn't even have a name then. You were so far ahead of the curve that no one else was doing it in the country that we knew about. You were the only one. Nobody
wanted it. No, nobody knew what it was. I mean, every time I showed it to anybody, they're like, "Oh, that's magic. That's fairy dust. What's that?" They didn't believe that it could do what it was doing. Yeah.
Cool. So, Donald, it's tradition for us to ask our guest to give a little bit of background, a little bit of history, and one interesting fact about themselves.
Didn't give me that bit, did you? One interesting.
No, I didn't. I just made that up, actually.
That's the hardest part. One interesting fact. Where have I come from? So traditionally, I'm a software engineer. I graduated with a software engineering degree. Which was a long time ago. I came out of having a software engineering degree, doing that for 4 years, and then decided I don't want to do that. So I did systems integration and did a lot of work on Unix boxes, some microsystems, 3D modeling for people like Ford, and then I got a job doing some integration for Barclays and worked for Barclays for 5 years or so. So I've been out the integration piece, but then when you're in the integration piece, you do a lot of subconscious coding, you do a lot of scripting, you do a lot of efficiencies, you do a lot of things. You know, why would I do that 4 times when I can just write one script and do it once? So you're never too far away from the software engineering part. And then like you said, 2021, 2020-ish, I was sort of tinkering around and thought, oh, what's this new stuff going on over here? I'll have a look at that. And then it just bore out of that, really. It born out of that. And here we are. I didn't realize it was 3 years. I keep telling people it must be about 12, 18 months.
That's because we don't let you out very often.
Oh no, but where we are, I mean, we can go into it, but it's the reason it sort of seems so short is we're not in any traditional business that's sort of manufacturing that your product set changes every 2, 3, 4 years. This product set evolves and changes every 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah,
it's much faster than that.
Matt says, interestingly, Matt Atkinson on the FBAI side of our business says this is the hardest business he's ever had to be involved with. And he said, like, you've got customer adoption problems, trying to help them use it. You've got the constant speed with which things are moving all the time. You've got the kind of customers, I guess, immaturity in AI. I mean, by definition, we kind of all are really, I guess, in that world of what do they choose to do with AI so you've got that makes sales very hard because you're always up against this kind of, we know we want it, but we're not sure what for. And we try and help them with that. So yeah, it is interesting. The pace is great fun, I think, but does make it probably harder than most businesses to run, isn't it? We're not just selling the same old thing time and time again.
It's really difficult, and that's why we try and, or I try and focus on the outcome, not the technology. The outcome is important for the user, for the customer, for the company. They have a job to do. They have and we need to facilitate that job in a much more faster, efficient way. We don't go in and say, we're AI, woohoo, how amazing is this? It's about the outcome. But our job is to keep up to date with the changes in the AI world and make sure that our tooling is the best tooling it can be.
Yeah, interesting. And it is, I mean, and that is tough because we're up against all the time, and we talk often on the podcast about Copilot and Claude and ChatGPT and, I mean, Gemini, and we're kind of in a space where we are being squeezed. I think it feels like right now that's squeezing us into a place that only KnowledgeFlow can play, the regulatory space. Yeah. Maybe that's going to be a good thing. Who knows? It's sort of brilliant and awful all at once, isn't it? You think we've carved out a little piece, and then all of a sudden that turns up somewhere else with a free bit of AI overlay on someone else's tool.
Yeah, well, what we've got the power of integration. We've got the power to cut across all the systems. We've got the power to mold. We said we were never going to be bespoke, and we're not fully bespoke, but we have built a platform that's adaptable for every outcome. So we can build integrations into all their systems and pull data from multiple different systems into KnowledgeFlow, and then deliver what somebody might take 3-4 weeks to do in 3-4 minutes.
Yeah. Can you remember back to when? So we started out selling what we now call our version 1 tools, so we'd have one for policy, and if you wanted BidWriter, we'd have one for BidWriter. And in college, quality was the first time we ended up in a kind of, they needed 3 in 1, so we ended up with sort of clumsily having different links you had to click. You then pulled together KnowledgeFlow at some point last summer. I think it was about this time last year when KnowledgeFlow was first.
It was after, or it was even more, even probably during. You remember we had the meeting at Tech UK, and we had everybody there, and we turned around and said we need to move away from a V1. We need a platform play. So we need a platform with multiple assistants that can do different jobs. And we looked at it, I described it as, you're in a large corporate and you have different departments. So you have HR, you have buying, you have procurement, you have legal, you have all the different departments, and you need the assistants on the left-hand side to be able to, what am I asking today? Am I in, I need a question about HR, I need a question about legal, and I need a question about procurement. And having that single port to your entire business. And that's where it came out of. And then you came up with KnowledgeFlow. And then after that, it was just born out of that, really.
Yeah.
It was like, can I have more assistants? Can I have more than 5? Okay, yeah. You got 10. Can I have more than 10? Oh, yeah, you can have 30. Or can I have more than 30? Yeah, you can have 100. Yes.
I was going to say, so one of my favorite things about leading AI as a company has been working with you and getting to know you, and that your anything's possible attitude, although not without a fair bit of resistance and moaning along the way, I would like to suggest. But what matters, I think, for our customers, and we were having a conversation earlier with someone about vibe coding, and everyone can vibe code something now with some pretty basic tools knocking around. The thing that you've brought from the very beginning, and it was most evident when Ibby joined us in the dev thing, is that old school, solid, safe, repeatable, documented, tested, bringing all of that with it, so that we can confidently stand behind the tools. And I think that is really important. But it must be a continual battle, because you can vibe code something in 10 seconds and probably spend half an hour having to write the documentation for it afterwards.
Well, you've got to know, it's software engineering is it's a foundation of binary, of bits and bytes of computing. And as much as we all love Ibby, and we do, there's some things that I have a conversation with him and he turns around to me and says, well, how do you know that? Well, I know that because I've got the foundation. I've spent 20 years learning the foundation of a computing system. That's never going to change. But what we're doing now is we're layering on top the fundamental foundation of what a computer system does, how it talks to the infrastructure, how it talks to the hardware, and that's still the same. But most people just don't know how to, the vibe coders of this world don't know how a lot of things work. Yeah. I talked to Ibby about networking, for argument's sake. And I was talking to him about subnets. He was like, what? I was like, you know not what a subnet is and how you subnet and supernetting and all that. He was like, no. And those are just fundamentals of everything that never changes. Your networking infrastructure, your protocols never change, or haven't changed for a long time.
Can I just say, has anybody else got volume sound issues, or is it just me?
I'm hearing. So I'm not got sound issues. I am hearing some further interference than as usual.
There's a lot of interference I'm getting.
Right, is that any better?
Yeah, much better. What was that?
I think it's my fan that's going off.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I was just going to say we were just talking about Ibby. Really interesting little story about him, because he probably never listens to this, but others may. But yeah, he was a graduate and couldn't get a job, and he'd got like a first-class degree, couldn't get a job, and it was actually he paid a recruitment person to get him a job, and they contacted me and said, we've got this young person, great credentials, are you interested? And we met him and we thought we'd take a chance on him, and now look at him, how he's grown. But it's interesting, isn't it, because the one of the people we've been talking to on the kind of special guest podcast was talking about, you've got to get the foundations right. If you get the foundations right, the rest of it just follows. But if you don't get the foundations right, the stuff that you end up making is built on sand and dodgy, and how do you know it works, how do you know it's ethical, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, we spoke about this. How does you people who are vibe coding, some of the ideas that they have are brilliant. I have never taken that away. The ideas that are coming out are superb. It's just the tooling that's not great. And the tooling, we spent such a long time getting 42,001, 27,001. All those are part of our foundation of what we build on. We have to have architecture diagrams. We have to be answerable to our system.
Interesting enough, I've had a request from somebody in healthcare who's just gone through an ISO audit, a series of ISO audits, and I was like, if you'd only told me a couple of weeks ago, we could have set that into your KnowledgeFlow for you, and you could have had one of them. And they were like, no. Yeah,
the ISO tool is a very helpful. Sitting in a monthly ISO meeting, I am often looking at the KnowledgeFlow's ISO assistant to get the answers. It's brilliant though, because it knows all the documents we've got. So actually, most of ISO is, have you got a thing that describes this, and have you got a log of it, and can you prove it?
You prove it.
Being able to ask and get it instantly, rather than, God, with my filing system or lack of filing system.
With all the stuff you keep in Dropbox where you shouldn't be keeping it.
I don't keep any clients up in Dropbox. It's not because it's not secure enough. Dropbox
Exactly.
make no claim to keep your stuff entirely secure.
Yeah.
Well, talking about security, Donald, I would like to explore with you the conversation about building inside the client's Azure tenancy, because I think we're still unique in that. There are obviously companies out there that will build you your own AI tools that are over to you to look after. Good luck to you after we've left. That is the only other people I think that build inside your Azure, but we've chosen to do it as a kind of as a service.
Yep.
So tell me about that. Why that, and why not more SaaS based? Just send the data to us and we'll have it all. Should be far cheaper, a hell of a lot easier. But why not? Data security, I'm
Cheaper,
guessing.
easier. I don't know whether it's cheaper or easier. We started this with security as the number one piece.
Still is.
So,
Yeah.
so where does your security lie? Your security lies in your Azure tenant. All the layers are already present there. You're not relying on anybody else for your security. So your security is already in place, already there in Azure. Your documents are already secured under role-based access and everything else that comes with it. So why would you decide to break that security barrier, pull your documents outside of there to make it easier to write a piece of software? Surely it makes more sense to write the piece of software that complements your existing security strategy, doesn't break it.
Yeah.
So that's where I was really, and that's the foundation of where I was. I still believe that's the right way to go. I still believe that SaaS is it has a place, but not when you really do want to put sensitive documentation in there. Your sensitive documentation could be anything from board minutes to CVs to medical notes to anything. And are you comfortable with holding all that information somewhere else? No. You already have the checks and balances in place in your Azure tenant.
Yeah.
So it's easier for you and more secure for you for us to write software that works with you.
It does take a bit of persuading sometimes that it's a secure option, doesn't it? For the amount of due diligence we have to jump through to get access to people's Azure tenancies.
Oh yeah, you do, but then that's just imagine on the flip side of that, if you're asking that those people who have so much security, oh, and can I have all your data, please? That the amount of hoops you would have to jump through to get the data out of that scenario would be tenfold.
Yeah.
So I'd rather jump through their security hoops than come and and us to take all the documents out of that security posture.
And it's definitely been a great USP for us in terms of being able to handle sensitive and secure private data.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a load of our tools play in that space. So it's very cool. The other thing that it would be great to get your reflections on as well is the admin console. So we met one of our old dev friends a long time ago, Neil and I, on the podcast, Mark Slater, Slash, as he likes to go by. And we were, it was a pure show and tell really, and kind of quite open and honest. And at one point I screen shared with him the admin portal, and he at that point went, holy, that is amazing. He said, like the concept that you can deploy a tool from one to another without the data. Let's just be really clear for our audience. It takes the settings, and if we've built a timetabling thing somewhere, we can move the timetabling thing somewhere else. But that idea that you've built everything as a variable that we need to play with. So yeah. How did that? Why was that? Is that just old school software engineering? Of course, you do it that way. Is it?
It's that simple for me. Old school software engineering. That is never building a platform which isn't. Once you hard code something, you've narrowed your audience. So for me, everything that I want to build, everything that I build has the ability to change its persona, change its wrapper. So I think that's probably one of our unsung heroes is the admin, the way we deploy. Because we deploy the same piece of software, we maintain the same piece of software across all our tenants. So the core software is the same, but we have the ability to make it look completely different, act completely different, based upon, again, the outcomes that the customer needs. What does the customer want to achieve? Well, we can make that happen. And also, there was a part of me at the time that thought, with people's adoption of AI being like people are not sure what it does, how it works, what do I prompt, how do I say it, how do I put something in? I think one of the first ones I built was for it's for an insurance company, and a large marine insurance company, and they turn around, and one of the prompts that I saw some come through saying, somebody asked it, what ice cream flavor do I like? And you're like, so you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what it does. So how are you going to ask it the right question if you don't know what it does? So therefore, we're going to have to help you on that journey. And the only way I can help you on that journey is to be able to configure it and give you the help that you need by the buttons, by the quick actions, by the prompts, and by helping you prompt your way through to your outcome.
Yeah, nice.
So,
And you've on top of that built the safeguarding piece, which we've talked about on here before. This is so one of the, if you want to put anything in front of students ever, then the Department for Education regulatory requirements are that you have a safeguarding filter and can track and trigger if people are having conversations that you would want someone to know about. So you built that, which is great because that runs across all of them again through the admin console. It can trigger off anyone anytime.
Yep, and the one of the thoughts that I had was you have edge filtering devices which catch responses from the internet, which are from particularly spurious websites or URLs or whatever. And I wanted to go one step further because I wanted to be able to catch is the wrong word, but sort of filter out somebody asking the question. What is the question they're asking? Because the answer is bad, but the question is also equally as bad. Now, most of them catch the answer coming back. So the answer coming back might be something quite spurious, but I want to know what question have they asked in the LLM for it to be able to answer or try and answer that question. Now, sometimes, and if you're trying to ask, I don't know what's reasonable to say. If we have all sorts working in education, but if you just ask how to make a bomb, the LLM will not answer that because it's safeguarding, it's guardrailed.
Yeah.
So the edge device that's filtering the request will not pick that up because the LLM comes back and says, I can't answer that question.
Yeah, interesting.
But we know that question was asked.
Yeah.
So therefore, we've caught it before the LLM can do anything.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's why it was built that way. We could have just relied on the edge device, but I didn't think that was enough.
Yeah. And you said to me at some point about the risk with, I think it was Copilot, but other tools that allow you to tunnel through your firewall to get to the internet.
Oh, so what we have is we have a browser extension. So we have a browser extension which sits inside KnowledgeFlow. Now, we're not trying to overcomplicate this. If you use Azure APIs or if you use OpenAI APIs, it will use Microsoft Azure's internet connection or OpenAI's internet connection to retrieve the answer. So it can effectively circumvent any firewalling or any filtering that you have at the edge of your network. So what we have is we have a browser extension which effectively uses your local machine's browser capability through your firewall, through your default gateway, through everything what you do. So any internet received information, data, whatever, through KnowledgeFlow will come through your firewall. So it'll be secure through your firewall. So if you do it through Azure uses its own internet connection out the data centers, and it doesn't do that.
Interesting. So we're even more secure than Azure. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we try. We try, yeah. We think
Nice.
about everything. This is about the software engineering part. You think about all the scenarios. You try and think about all the different connotations about who's going to use it, how are they going to use it, what with security, safety is key to these things. Because if you're not secure and you're not safe, then what are you? You're just throwing out a chapter.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, we're. Now, tell me this. You've just been redoing the way we do indexing. So the KnowledgeFlow, just to quickly catch up anyone who's listening that might not know all about it, it's mainly a retrieval augmented generation or RAG AI tool. That means you can have a vast document library and it will find answers in there. So it's able to answer a question about policy or a question about from all of the legal cases that have ever existed on a subject. It's able to find best practice in Ofsted reports, etc., etc. But that process of doing that is a process called embeddings, and it is more complicated than it appears, isn't it? You can just press a button and make it do basic embeddings, but then your answers will be not correct. But you've just been working on a load more indexing. Can you share that, or is this still very secret sauce we don't want to give away to anyone else that's in this struggling with this
Too transparent. But the problem with vector databases is what we thought, especially when you're looking across policies and documents who have so many similar idiosyncrasies, or some paragraphs are so much similar, or they can be. You can take meeting minutes that from 1 minute from 1 month to the next. They're not that too dissimilar, because the meetings follow a structure anyhow. So it's very easy to sort of look at one particular document and go, well, that's the answer, when it isn't the answer, because it was a meeting from last month, not this month. So when we're doing the indexing now, we do some pre-processing. So we pre-process it. So we pulling out key vector or key pieces of data that we will embed into the vector database, into the chunks, that will allow us to categorically turn around and go, yes, that is the document we need, and that is the document you need to retrieve the answer from. So yeah, we're expanding on that quite a lot at the moment.
And all the other bits, hybrid search that you have on there, NER, BM25, re-ranking, cognitive sentence matching. I mean, it's like, I'm amazed we get an answer back within an hour from them. We get
I don't know what some of those things are. What are some of those?
Some of it's secret source, Neil. You can't.
Oh, is
you
it?
don't
All
want
right,
everyone to know. The combination of those and the settings that you apply to them is what makes KnowledgeFlow accurate.
But it's like your Pret sandwich, where they'll just give you a list of ingredients, and then and you make it wrong.
Can't deconstruct it here. No.
It's very.
So, what would you say is the hardest? I had two questions, and they're very simple. They're simple to ask. I'm not sure if they're easy to answer. But what's the hardest technical challenge you've come across in building KnowledgeFlow? And is that what you're most proud of in what you've done so far? I thought it was simple to ask.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. That
timetabling.
The hardest thing has always been my nemesis is structured data. So Excel spreadsheets, CSVs, SQL. The reason it's the difficulty is because what we tried to do is when we started this, and your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, all the Groks and everything, when you log in and you try and upload anything more than 20 documents, it goes, no, we can't do that. You need to upload 20 is our maximum or whatever it is. So we turned around and went, right, we can't do that. Because when we're looking at medical notes, when we're looking at solicitors' notes, we're looking at all the bits and pieces. Those case packs can be 600-700 documents. Effectively, that's easier than reading 50,000 lines of a SQL database. Because 50,000 lines of a SQL database, the commonalities between those lines are so minuscule. So pulling out the differentiators between line 1 and line 427 or whatever that may be That's difficult and that's tricky. And there's always a scenario. And what I found is there's always a scenario where you feel like you've got to the magic answer, and you know your wands all waving, and you're going, hey, it's done, it works. And then somebody will come along and go, wait a minute, I've just done that, and that's the answer, and you just think, well, I know why that's come out as that answer. I know what it's done, but that's just another scenario that I need to cater for to make sure that it works. So this unstructured data is actually easier than structured data in a RAG, because RAG or LLMs are almost better built for unstructured data.
Yeah. And this is the problem of, as we've talked about before, is the problem for an LLM is it knows the difference between a kettle and a car, but ask it the difference between number 10 and number 11, and they're basically the same thing. Then that's where it struggles with numbers entirely, doesn't it? And you've managed to hack that. Is that the right phrase? Probably not. Hack is probably not a word we should use.
Engineer.
Engineer. But what are you most proud of? That's what Neil asked the second part.
I think definitely. I'm going to be sound sad and but we're the company. It's I'm most proud of, actually. You know, we all work together. We have a call, and you two have got to thank for this, because it's something I was alien to. But we have a call at 9:30 every morning with everybody, and we all work separately. We all work in different parts of the country. We rarely get together, but we should do it more. But it's just, life gets in the way and work gets in the way. And we're still here 3 years later, and we have a lot of customers on our books, and we are moving forward at an incredibly fast rate, and it's so enjoyable. It's great fun. To work in some ways great fun is a blessing.
That's good, and I love the idea that nearly all of our customers are doing are focused on helping people, helping underserved people in the main, and disadvantaged folk, and that always gets me out of bed. So working with a great team on stuff that matters, we're not just there to make someone some more money, which
we make a difference. We do make a difference, and it's making a difference to people's work life at least. But that work life makes a difference to people on the ground.
So here's the challenging questions. Not technically challenging, strategic. We had a strategy session on Monday, which was really good, and we could talk about some of the things that came out of that if there's time. But so I had a feedback session with a customer who has had BidWriter, and they had it on a trial basis. And headlines are, they've come back and basically said, it's not really doing it for us. We think we're going to hand it back, and rather than, well, they are going to hand it back, we'll not think. And it was a difficult thing to listen to, but there was good feedback that they were giving. There was a whole bunch of it's personal feeling rather than anything, which is very difficult. As you know, a lot of we get from people is, well, I didn't like the way it wrote like that. And we can change the tone a bit, but then you'll get another colleague over here that says, I like the way it writes. So that's always a battle. But here was the thing a couple of bits that went through my mind is, it strikes me, we created BidWriter more than 2 years ago, probably, when no other tool was able to do anything like that, and people weren't even aware that that was something AI could help you with in any. People were using ChatGPT to give answers to bid questions, but not bringing their whole library of case studies that organizations created, and roles and methodology statements and all of that stuff, and drawing on that. So the difficult question is, are there tools we should think about retiring? Because what my concern is that these guys were using Claude and basically saying, we're using Claude alongside it, and frankly, it's a bit better at answering than KnowledgeFlow is. And I was like, well, that's partly annoyingly because Claude writes better, and that'd be great once Microsoft finally bloody allow us to use Claude inside Azure securely, then that could help. But the other side of it is that they aren't that bothered about the security of their documents, because it's a small company we're talking about. They've got a load of proposals. The only part of those proposals which is in any way sensitive will be the cost tables, and ultimately, if they give all of those to Claude and they end up in an LLM, that's not a declarable data loss. That's just I might get told off by my boss. So the question on my mind is, given KnowledgeFlow's focus on regulatory stuff where it matters, where the answer has to be right, and where you need consistency, should we think about retiring BidWriter and maybe some of the other early tools, which people are now able to do in other ways? And my fear is always that if we keep going head to head with it, and we can keep improving BidWriter, and for some organisations it's perfect. I think I know what's going on.
I don't want to lose it. So just to be clear,
I'm with you.
I've done a couple of bids recently, and to get 60% of the we're there in 2 hours, where it would normally take you 2 weeks, just gives you such an advantage. And it's not perfect. And I think there's something about expectation management for people, where it. But the honest truth, I'd be gutted if you shut it down, because the next time I need to write a bid, I'm going to be bloody starting again and messing. And actually, and the other thing I would challenge back to you, Kieran, is there's something about I can cut both sides of the coin, right? I can be ruthless and say that's no good. Let's just cut that. We're not going to do that. That's fine. But on the other side, it's driven a whole load of innovation. So, for example, we did a bid for an organisation, and they basically had 2 spreadsheets with 190 questions in, and what a pain in the bum that was. And I was cutting and pasting, and I was sticking a prompt in, asking it, getting the answer, sticking it in the bloody spreadsheet. And then Donald went, "Oh, I can fix that." So he'd let me spend 2 days doing all of that kind of cutting, and then, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can fix that. The next thing he comes on, yeah, press this button, and then yeah, and we've now answered question 7 of 197. We've now answered question 8, and you can watch it just go through, and just to get that is incredible. So I hear you, but I would advocate that BidWriter isn't one of the ones for the cull, or if it does get culled for other people, then I think it's a personal choice. I think if anyone's using it and they're getting value from it, then brilliant. So I'd be gutted, but it drives innovation, and that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that it's forced us to do things, and not only did we now move from pressing the button, Donald's created a little wizard at the front which says, how many turns do you want it to do? So you'll get the answer back, and then it can ask itself the question, is this a good answer? What score would you give it? If it's less than 4 out of 5, then go back and have another bash at it. So just that, not accepting the first answer out of the door, and actually providing some judgment on it. And so it's already moved on way much further. And I think for some people, I get it, and we've talked to lots of people about this recently, that whole piece about people using the frontier models that are free and accessible. They're getting, or you're paying $20 a month or whatever, and you're getting access to the latest bells and whistles. Of course they want that, but the reality is you can't have them in the secure environment in the UK at the moment. You just can't. And so it's managing, some of it is managing expectations as well, and that is a real challenge for us. It is a real challenge, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, is the honest truth. I think we're just going to have to keep on going. But to answer your question, should we be retiring some of our products? Quite possibly, but we're already doing that. We're doing that with the version 1s that you mentioned earlier. They're going out. We're changing. We're updating the models. But this is another thing that we just don't tell our customers. We've moved models. They most of them don't even know which model they're on, is the honest truth. So all they want to know is that it actually works. It's a bit like hygiene, isn't it? They just want to know that it's working for them. So anyway, I'm going to stop advocating for BidWriter and let Donald answer the question that you asked him 10 minutes ago.
So my simple answer is what we started off on saying is the speed of change and the speed of improvement that we are experiencing in the AI world makes BidWriter always going to improve. So yes, you are up against somebody who is capable of using Claude or Claude Code or Codex or whatever they're using, and they're using it in a way that works for them. Great. Our BidWriter will always improve, So the newer models, the newer prompts, the newer sort of, tooling that we put around it, that will always improve. And I'm really rubbish and crap at metaphors, but you give me a trowel and a pile of bricks and ask me to build a house. You imagine what it's going to look like. So basically, there are people out there who can prompt, and there are a lot of people who can't. So BidWriter cuts across the masses. There are a few people out there who do know how to prompt and who do know how to use it, but the majority don't.
Yeah, interesting. And I think one of the things on my mind in a slightly more technical answer to BidWriter's problem is we've designed BidWriter pretty much really well for a kind of public sector procurement audience where they want lots of evidence of how have you done this before. And so therefore, if you think about it in a technical sense, what we do and built by design is that as soon as you're answering question 1, it's going to do a retrieval into your index, bring back a load of chunks that are relevant stuff and write about those in its answer. And I think one of the things from this feedback from this company earlier is they want a bit more time on the kind of creative answer, of course, because that model will always favor going back to what you've done already, as opposed to some new way you could do it. So I do think and this is the stuff of a button prompt, so it's pretty straightforward to test, is to say to it, first up, let's do some brainstorming, or you go away, KnowledgeFlow, and give me some thoughts about how I could best answer this, and then let's go look in the index for stuff that's adjacent, the same as, or whatever.
Personality of the LLMs as well. We know the personalities of the LLMs can change the answers, or change the inference, or change the way it writes dramatically.
Yeah.
So it's for us to know the personalities of the LLMs to put them in the right places for the right people.
Yeah.
And we can change, going back to the admin console, if they turn around and say we don't like that, with a press of a button, we can change all of their knowledge flow to 5.5, 5.6 solve, 5.4, 4.0, whatever you want to do.
Can't get 5.6 yet in Azure South securely, can we?
I don't know. I've not checked. I checked the model route yesterday, but I've not checked 5.6.
I bet it's not there yet. We'll probably get it in about next September 2028. I imagine they'll release it to the UK South.
They're rolling them out really fast now because it's a race to the top, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or race to the bottom.
That's encouraging. But once they let us have Claude, then we'll be laughing. Well, hopefully.
I don't know why there's not there's a blocker on that one. It's there, it's listed, but you just can't get access to it.
Yeah.
Maybe Microsoft haven't paid their token bill.
We haven't. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So on the Monday, Donald, this is a good share with our audience about how Donald works. On Monday, we spent the afternoon together talking about where we should go, the importance of the regulatory focus for KnowledgeFlow, evidence packs, audit trails, more data, integration layer, all that good stuff. We also talked about building a KnowledgeFlow for procurement that could do a bunch of things, and inquiry handling and supplier sorting and invite quotes and deal with quotes and effectively automate the whole kind of first steps of a procurement world. Yeah. So you said, okay, great.
I haven't done anything with that yet.
Well, so I get alerts, as you probably know, although you're probably going to turn them off me. I think you, Ibby, and I are the only people that get automatic alerts if one of our tools goes down, is offline or whatever else. And I must say, I've only ever got them from Sandbox tools. I've never seen one from a customer, which is great that they're always operating. Anyway, I started getting one from a thing called KnowledgeFlow for procurement.
Really?
And I've had a few hit-ups with this thing that's going on and offline, as you're presumably doing something. So do you want to share anything about that, Donald?
I don't know what you're talking about. No idea. Yes, all right. So I've software engineering started. I've started to put together the building blocks. There you go. So that's all I will say is that this is building blocks, detailing. The detailed spec I've got so far, it for me is probably 4 or 5 pages long. About I need to go through this, but that needs to be able to do that, and then you build. It's building blocks. It's like Lego. It's all it is, and you can't say Lego and other building blocks are available. but it's building blocks. So I've started to put the building blocks together because, again, we know this. I'm an engineer. I'm not a designer. So I can make things functional, but you ask me to choose a color, no idea.
Black.
Black. That's also I just went black. That's
White.
White, black and white. Yeah.
Maybe that's why we get on, Donald. It's like,
Well,
it's
you
simple.
said you get
Very
on.
black and white.
There's been plenty of times when you've gone, I think I've really pissed him off because I've asked him to do these 800 things. And then Donald will go, no, you can't do that. No.
Yeah.
And the next morning, be like, here it is.
Here it is.
I've done
There
it.
it
So
is.
you do have
Yeah.
prior, Donald.
I didn't
You
sleep
do
last
have
night, but there you go.
That's right. I didn't sleep, but here's your tool for you.
There you go, we fixed it. And timetabling is one of those which you've, and I've tried to explain it briefly and hopefully not saying too much that is secret. But what you've managed to do is blend LLM and effectively old school algorithms.
Yes.
And that's how you're making timetabling work.
Yeah, there's the process, like again, the building blocks. There's one building block where Matt turn around and say, this needs to be hard coded because I know what the inputs are. So the inputs need handling in a particular way. But then then you need to move it on to a stage, and the stage 2 is, well, actually somebody might mean that, or somebody might mean that, or somebody might call a course this, or somebody might call a course that. So, to code that, it's not impossible, but your statements or your functions become unwieldy because you're trying to cater for every single possibility, even spelling mistakes. So using an LLM in that scenario, weaving the two together, makes the whole process incredibly functional and incredibly powerful.
Yeah. It is very good, and it's doing a great job of so far. And we're looking forward to getting into the wild to get some people actually using it. But I've shown it to 3 colleges and a university, and just the initial feedback is like the old days of showing them RAG for the first time. You get this kind of, that's amazing. When can I have it? So that would be really good to get out there. Yeah, good.
Cool. Where do you see things going from here, Donald? What's next? What do you think the evolution's going to be? Where do you think we're going to be in another 3 years' time? 3 years is a long way away. I mean, we couldn't have predicted this stuff. We couldn't have predicted.
3 days' time, where will we be?
40 by then. I don't know. I think I'm not going to change my mantra. My mantra is it's about the outcomes. It's about the customer outcomes. So the exciting part for us is you wake up in the morning and something else happens. Something else has changed. Something else has been released. Some of the functionalities here. And we're not building the LLMs. We're not in that game. We're in the game of tooling. We're in the game of making, pulling all the tools together and making all those tools work for our customers. That's what the game we're in, and it's exciting because there's all sorts of tools out there. So where we're going to be in 3 years, I hope we're still here. I still hope we've got 100 times more customers, and and we're still doing what we do because I enjoy it. And that's the part that we're all old enough and ugly enough now that we need to enjoy what we're doing. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah, we are.
As we said, I've said a few times along the way, is the good thing about sort of being slightly more mature in your career is that you basically can rule out. We don't work with arseholes. I try to sift out customers who are going to be arseholes and just don't really carry on with them or make it too expensive to make them go away. Yep. And it's quite nice to be able to feel that you're not like, I remember in my sort of late 20s, early 30s, when you had to just gun at everything, and it was always, oh God, this is really a difficult customer. Now you just think, no, they're just an arsehole. That's what they are, and don't work with them.
It's a fulfilling ethos, getting rid of arseholes.
Well, there you go. Maybe there's your podcast title, Neil.
Getting rid of arseholes. Getting rid of arseholes. Brilliant. Gentlemen, it's been emotional. Donald, thanks for making the time.
Pleasure, thank you.
It's been great as always, and we'll get this one out, and hopefully our audience will have learned something really interesting along the way. And if he could tell us what it was, then that'd be brilliant. So thanks very much. Have a great day. See you guys.
Nice one.
Thanks.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
everybody. See you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.